Right, check out this video. This is so funny to me. Do you guys know the YouTuber Jack Morgan? I'm not a fan. Every time this man comes up on my feed, I just think, oh my God, I do not like this human being. But I watched this video today and I thought, I really don't like him now. This particular video, I want to explore with you because I think the topic is interesting. And I think his reaction is exactly my criticism of exactly the problem I find when Gen Z says millennials need to grow up. This is who Gen Z is talking about, but he doesn't even get how he's playing right into it.
This one's titled, Millennials 30 to 35 are weird and immature.
How's it sound?
Well, as a 35-year-old man, I second that notion, and I'm
Okay, I'm 36, just for the context.
proud.
Little generational war. I'm just gonna go ahead and say I think that 30 to 35-year-olds are weird. Older millennials, they're pretty chill. I'm not gonna lie. But that 30 to 35, I don't know what it is about y'all. I don't know what happened 1990 to 1995. Y'all are a very interesting demographic. I made a video about this a long time ago and I called y'all the Peter Pan generation, and that still stands because this is the same generation that was saying we look younger than Gen Z. But I've also noticed that y'all tend to act younger than Gen Z too. And me and my friends have had discussions about this where like the 30 to 35-year-olds that we've encountered, especially in the workplaces, sometimes y'all remind me of teenagers. Like I've literally had conversations with coworkers before and I had to like, how old are you again?
I can't stop looking at her nails.
Because they're fabulous? Because they're really super cute? Or could it be for another reason?
I'm just gonna go ahead and say, she's got a point to it. Let her finish out. Let her finish out.
Because like you're reminding me of my little like 19-year-old cousin right now. And on one hand I say, hey, that's beautiful, keep your youth, you know, don't let the world get you down. But then sometimes, especially when y'all start having a conversation about looking younger than Gen Z, I think maybe you look younger because you're mentally younger, babe. I think they're having a hard.
I definitely don't think I look younger than anybody who's 25. I literally have
I do not look younger than a 25-year-old. I think though, and this is what's interesting, and I will add an autistic perspective to this, I do embody youngness in the way that I dress because there is sort of a late bloomer part of being neurodivergent. And I think a lot of us do have a late bloomer attitude. And I think this is actually really important. I've been saying, guys, we have got to be the adults in the room. So I say by 40, I do want to be more of the adult in the room, which means I want to dress eccentric, but like an adult. I tend to dress literally in clothes that were not even made for my age demographic. I remember one time I told my dad, I go, do I look 18? He goes, you dress 18. And I was like, yeah, I can stop dressing 18. Like I remember the last day my bestie and I walked into Forever 21, looked at each other and said, oh no, you are not indeed, like you are not Forever 21. That's not a thing. So we walked out. I remember it. It was such a clear day of like, oh, we have outgrown this store. And I think that's really important. Now, I think there's a late bloomer part that plays into this, in which like there's like this middle ground. You know, I wear my Sailor Moon shirts and I wear my clothes. And I will say, once I have money that I can spend and justify on clothes because I've got my house and everything's more established, I will dress older. Okay, one of the reasons I think we end up dressing younger is the fashion is more accessible to us because of the price. But I've also moved away from fast fashion, which means now I'm either going to settle for the clothes I have already, or the next thing I get is going to be one singular piece at a time that like adds to my wardrobe. So there's some part of that plays into this. I remember when Hassan used to like paint his nails. Hassan is like a really good example of a streamer who dresses younger than he is because he's kind of a trending kind of person, and trends are usually set by certain demographics. Like you remember when he was painting his nails and he had a very specific aesthetic? A lot of Hassan has grown since then, but I noticed that he used to dress a lot younger, and a part of me thought it was because he was appealing to his audience. But I think there's just something in us, especially as streamers, that we tend to dress younger because our job keeps us young. Like our job just naturally keeps us very young in spirit because it's kind of a young man's job being a streamer, right? It's kind of just so youthful of us to be over here and be like, hey guys, what's up? You know? So I think the goal is to make sure that if you're an eccentric dresser, which I think you should be, if you want to be, you age it to be age appropriate. You don't try to dress like teenagers. You try to dress in a way that fits your style, but it's elevated. Kind of like food, you know, kind of like food. Like, okay, yes, a steak is a steak, but let's elevate it. A burger is a burger, but let's elevate it. Fries are fries, but let's elevate them. And it's to match the maturity in the room, to set and to signal into the community that you're rising into elder years. Because again, if we talk about community, we should show up as the community. We do not want the 40-year-olds to be as mature as the 20-year-olds. This is not good. This is not good, which is why you shouldn't be dating 20-year-olds if you're 50, and you certainly should be hanging out with them as if you are them. Like, you need to be 50. And that's the problem, is like, I think people don't understand why that's important until they start hanging out with 50-year-olds that only hang out with 20-year-olds. Because you want to talk about stunted, okay? Chet said, I love Miss Frizzle. I love Miss Frizzle so much. But Miss Frizzle works with children, right? She works with kids. So, you know, it's kind of age appropriate for her to be especially more eccentric. But she works with kids. You know, when we're talking about 40-year-olds, okay, who are showing up with 20-year-olds, it's like, okay, what are we doing here? Now, wait, pause. She said, oh, one thing that I saw in this conversation, I'll just say it now, is when I was in the BDSM dungeon, we had the next generation parties, 18 to 35. And once you were 35 or 36, you aged out of those parties. Because even though I used to go to all age parties and I loved it, there's just a time to let young people be young. There is a space in which you do not want 50-year-olds creeping on the 18-year-olds. So you give a cutoff for the young people to be young together. It's like older people almost want to deny young people a space to be young because they don't want to give themselves the responsibility of being older. And again, I remember when my friends would age out and I'd be like so sad. I'd be like, oh my God, you're aging out. We're not going to see you at the parties anymore. They're like, but that's good. We want young people to have their own space. And I was like, ah. And then I would go to all age parties and see my friends there. But yeah, my friend group got split at some point, but just for those events because my friends aged out. And it was kind of like bittersweet, but necessary to maintain safety in the community. You know? But again, you can dress eccentric, you can dress out there, you can cosplay, you can do lots of eccentric things as an older person, but we have to elevate it to match. Again, you're not trying to dress younger. You're trying to dress your age, but eccentric, right? Chaz says, is it about being mature or signaling matureness? Because style doesn't really have an age outside of the constructs. But it does. Of course. Okay, hold on, pause. Nothing has any meaning outside of the constructs. Not even consent, right? Like we know consent is a construct, right? So why do we create a construct around how you show up? Because it's about responsibility. Remember that, like, I think this is the problem when we're having these conversations. Anything I'm saying, maybe I should say it because maybe people are new. Everything is a construct. And the reason we change the constructs is to reflect a maturity in culture. So encouraging people to dress their age, but eccentric, is the update to the boomers' idea of dressing your age. So boomers would say, dress your age, do not dress eccentric. I'm a millennial saying, dress your age, but dress eccentric. I'm saying you don't have to be not eccentric, but you can't, I don't think it's good to be an older person who's trying to fit in with younger people. It says something about your maturity level that you want to hang out with young people. Let young people be young people. And that's what this girl's TikTok is about. Spoiler, is like her TikTok was calling out millennials who wanted to party with her friends. And she's like, why are you at these parties? Why are you at these parties? And that's the thing. They're like, why can't I be here? You're an adult. Yeah, but like, you're like old. And then people are like, I'm not old. Why are you at these parties? You know? Okay, back to the video.
Gray hair and wrinkles. But this is the classic thing, something to think about. I hope she remembers this video when she is 35. Because when you reach 35, even 32, you're 35, you're 15 years from 50 and 15 years from 20. And when you're younger, tell me if I'm tripping, Nestor, tell me if I'm tripping here. When you're younger, you want to be older. And when you're older, you want to be younger.
I don't want to be younger. No, I do not want to be younger. I think that's the trap. I think we should get away from this idea of romanticizing youth. I don't agree with him. I disagree with him. I want to get older. I want to be the elder. I want to be responsible. I don't want to be a kid. I'm trying to get as far away from youth as possible. That's what I'm trying to do. The thing is, they want to be younger so they don't have to be responsible. Now, there's an important part about keeping your imagination alive and keeping some romanticism alive. But look, adults who don't grow up, they are fundamentally a big problem with culture. Adults who grow up and they think growing up means being rude and stagnant, they're the problems with the culture. We want to get older, but stay self-aware. But we also want to take on the responsibility of being older. Okay? So yeah, I don't want to be younger. And that's why I think this conversation is so important. Because we're not letting people age. Now, I don't think aging means you can't have dyed hair or pink hair or big earrings or tattoos or any of that. I don't think any of that has to do with getting older. But I think the way you express it can be. Like, when you get older, you should be able to pay your own bills, as an example. And I know there are nuanced cases, and that's fine. But you should be able to take on the responsibility of taking care of yourself and taking care of others to some extent, right? And I know, because we have disability in this country or around the world, it can be different for different people. But I think a lot of us aren't doing as much as we could be doing in the ways that actually work with our joy. And that includes how we dress and show up in the world. But again, this also coincides with money, right? I'm not going to try to dress my age at the expense of not paying my bills, but I'm going to make sure that if I ever spend money, it's going to be in a responsible manner. I asked my partner the other day, I was like, how do you feel about the fact that like we're not going to be able to spend money on anything like extra for like 3 to 5 years because we have this big financial goal? And they were like, I have everything I need. I was like, yeah, like we're literally making a choice as a couple to like live very bare minimally for like 3 to 5 years to meet our financial goals. And then we'll have fun in our like 40s and 50s. We'll like, okay, we're going to spend money when we're older. So for me, getting older sounds great. When I'm older, I'm going to have so many more options. But if I have to like chill for the next 5 years, okay, to reach some financial goals, fuck yeah. I don't give a fuck, right? But I never could have done that in my youth because I was so mentally ill. I was just trying to spend all my money to like feel something, right? Chet said, what about elder poverty? Well, where does that come from? If we are all going into debt to keep up with the Joneses, so y'all don't have retirement, don't you think that's a part of the problem of elder poverty? Old people who do become stagnant, who don't do their research, who don't invest in themselves now, you need to invest in yourself because elder poverty is real. Do you want to be the old person who's 80 and is homeless? Like, we have got to focus. Lock in, guys. Lock in. The world's not coming to save you. Lock in. Because I don't want to be 80 and homeless. I am absolutely thinking about my elders. I am investing for 80-year-old Brittany right now. Okay? And not to mention the amount of divorces that have occurred, mental health, the people that are old and homeless now, think about what year they grew up in. Think about what was accessible to them. Think about the resources they had, right? They didn't have the amount of resources we had. And they still ended up that way in an economy where a house costs $75,000. So we need to focus on these things. Chet said wages need to go up first. Nothing's going to, but you can't, I don't know what you're saying. You can expand on that. I can't wait for wages to go up. And if you're waiting around for that to happen, you're not going to save. You're not going to do what has to be done. Right? Chet said that's a very neoliberal mindset, isn't it? You think it's the fault of poor people that they're poor? I didn't say that, bro. I didn't say that. Okay. There's a multi-layer part of this. Yes? Okay. First, I fundamentally believe that the system is broken and is not going to come save you. First and foremost. Okay? The system is fucked. It doesn't care about you. We agree? Okay. I'm not going to wait for the system to figure it out. I'm going to do what I can within the system to make it work while advocating for the system to change. Yes? Okay? Same with everything else that happens. Okay, homophobia, transphobia, all of it. I'm not going to wait for the world to figure it out. Okay? So I believe I was born into this bubble where I was taught this is all that mattered. I went on a philosophical, huge journey that made me realize, oh, like I'm a human on a planet, literally existing in a whole universe. And I have limited my thinking into thinking this stupid capitalistic world is all that mattered. Fuck that, bro. How do I work within this system to actually experience the joy of living and existing as a person? And that's what I want for you guys. I want you to realize this little bubble here that you think is all that matters doesn't. This is just the bubble that convinces you this is all that matters. And once you realize that, you can learn to live within the world that makes sense and gets you outside of thinking that you have to wait for the system to catch up. You can advocate for the system to change. But if we live in a white supremacist world, if we live in capitalism, if we live under the, oligarchs and all this stuff, which we do, then you can either give up now, but like, I'm not one to give up. I'm a fighter. Okay. I'm not giving up. And certainly not because my oppressors say to, because that's what they want, right? They want you to give up. They want you to be tired. Well, okay, girl, with this fibromyalgia in my blood, I won't be tired enough. So yes, it is hard, but I'm not about to be that tired. You know what I'm saying? Because that's what they expect. They expect you to be burdened by how heavy they've made the world, so you give up. And I'm not about to give up. So I do the best I can while advocating for a better system. Period. Okay? Period. Now, okay, and this is what's hard. It is exhausting and it is very difficult. So you have to do your philosophical work. You have to do it. Because I fully accept that I'm an animal on a planet. Listen to me when I say this, girls. I do not think I am better than a tree. I do not think my life is more meaningful than a fish. I do not think my life is more meaningful than yours. I think I just exist here on a planet with you, and I am making my best out of it. Okay? I am doing my best with it, and I'm acting within my values, which I think are subjective PS. That's it. And this helps me wake up every day and live my life how I want to. Because I realized, like, I was never entitled to a good life. I simply advocate for one. And people should have good lives. But if we're animals on a planet and we believe in evolution, there was no entitlement to begin with. There was only the ability for us to introspect, extrospect, and create a construct in which we then believed people were entitled to a good life, which I do believe. I believe people are entitled to a good life. I know that is not technically true given that we are animals on a planet. But I advocate for it because I think it would help everybody. And that's the thing that matters to me, is that I am 100% relying on what I know is true about reality. And I know God didn't put me here, so I'm not waiting for her to come save me. And I know these people in charge don't care about me, so I'm not waiting for them either. But if I believe in community and I believe in being a good person, then I think I'm going to also try to have a good life within those constructs, right? So I'm not blaming people for being poor. I don't think it's your fault. I think it is your responsibility to recognize as an adult person in the world that you are the only one who's going to come save you, though. And if you're lucky enough to have been a good community member, you've built bonds and connections with people that you can rely on, that you have community with, that you are in harmony with. And then you build a better sort of like structure and system you can rely on in your own way, right? Chess says, is this more about your plans, like what you're going to do to adapt within your means? Always. It's always about adapting, because I think that's what we've evolved to do, right? It's about being humble too. I want to be humble enough to say that I am just a person on a planet. And that, like, that humility makes me grateful for just anything I have every day, right? The humility of knowing that, like, I've had the same phone for like a few years, or the same clothes for 10 years, or it's like the humility of knowing that I'm grateful just to have these things, to be able to pay my rent. Like, it's about being humble as well, instead of like bitter and entitled to having something more. Grateful that I even have this much. Grateful that I even have this much, right? Chess says, someone is going to be homeless under the current system. I think Britt is saying, don't let that person be you. Some truly live under the illusion of not being unhoused. We have some agency here. I think if you're truly unhoused, you're probably going through a mental health crisis. I really do believe that. That's why I say unhousedness is a mental health crisis. Now, there are some exceptions to this that people do not think about because they're not the majority. And that is the person in your family who doesn't have any resources because they actually are a predator, or because they actually are abusive and nobody wants to take them in anymore, so they become homeless. But I would argue that is a mental health crisis, right? So we have to focus on that as well. But I do think unhoused people need better resources. They need housing. I think everybody should be housed, clothed. I think everybody should have like a weekly government check that feeds them. I think everybody should be housed 100%. But I don't feed myself on dreams, girls. Okay. So at the same time, the responsible adult, and I'm not talking to kids in this room, I'm talking to adults. We have to own that. We have to accept that the system is the way it is. And then within our values, shift that system by shifting ourselves. Okay. You said, okay, let's see. You said that's all fine and good, but sometimes you can't do anything. There are people who are in circumstances so fucked that they will never be able to save enough for retirement. Okay, I would like to validate you and say, yes, is that you? Or are you pretending it's you so you can have something to complain about? Because it ain't going to be me. And it ain't going to be my parents. And it's not going to be my aunties and uncles. And it's not going to be my family. Because a lot has to happen. A lot has to go terribly wrong for that to be your life. So yes, that will happen to someone in the same way someone's kid will get kidnapped and in a way that like somebody in a different country, in a different place will be genocided. But it's not you, is it? Are you the one? I'm not the one. In my privileged position, I will not be the one. Because goddamn, if I can't make it in privilege, how am I going to make it otherwise? That's what I'm saying. I'm saying the privilege gives you enough, if you have enough of it, to not be in that position. But it can't, the privilege alone isn't enough. You have to act on the privilege. The only reason we're not being genocided is because we weren't born in Palestine. They don't have the privilege of having, do you know what I'm saying? I'm saying if you live in a country where you were given access to that privilege, you might as well fucking utilize it because you don't, do you know what I'm saying? And you have to acknowledge that so many parents didn't do that. Like so many old people didn't do that because they were arrogant, because they were conservative and arrogant, because they were liberal and arrogant, because they sat there in a world and thought, I don't need therapy. I don't need to, focus on my education. I don't need to get a good job. A lot of people out here raised their kids to pay their bills. And when those kids never talked to them again, they ended up in elderly situations where they had no income. So I'm not sad because you're old and homeless. I'm sad that the world you created and the world you live in and the world we maintain created a situation where you, even as a bad parent, weren't housed. But let's be so for real that a lot of these old people who are struggling financially are also parents kids don't want to talk to anymore. Okay? If you don't have kids who will love you enough to pay your bills when you're old, you fucked up as a parent. Because even though my parents weren't perfect, we would help them in a heartbeat because they were never entitled to our money. How are you letting your grandma and grandpas be homeless? You know what I'm saying? Yes, in some situations, they are good people who got fucked over. But you're telling me you got to the ripe age of 80 and didn't create a circumstance outside of that? And then, of course, for the unique cases in which they truly just got the worst, the worst hand dealt to them, that's where the system is supposed to come in and help them. And it should exist there. We should have a system that comes in, but it doesn't. So 100% the system needs to be better. But you're acting like old people also didn't do anything to like contribute to their situation. And I think that's the part that I'm sick of. I'm sick of elders in our community acting like they weren't the adults in the room at the time. I'm trying to be a better adult so my kids don't have to pay my bills. Chet said, what if somebody doesn't have kids? Exactly. Then that is one of those circumstances where like, okay, you don't have kids. And I've met elderly people like this. What about friends, family, community? What happened in the 80 years you were on the planet that you died alone? Because I'll tell you, all the old people I've ever met that were dying alone were people that were severely stunted growing up. And that was some adult in the room who didn't do their job. Some adult in the room is having a kid right now and will not do their job as a parent, which will create a circumstance for an elderly person to die alone because you did not raise your kids with a community, because you did not socialize your children, because you did not give them people to call. You act like this thing just happened. It's not the person who died at 80 homeless. It's the person who raised them and the person who raised them and the person who raised them and the person who raised them. You did not just fall out of a coconut tree, as the great genocidal Harris said, or her mother said, okay? I'm saying it didn't just start with you, but it better end with you. You want to break a generational curse? Start now. Because it can't be, if it's not you, who? Who? I'm just, you know what I'm saying? Don't come at me and tell me, okay, that we want the world to be better, we want a better community, and not start with yourself. Because that's crazy. That's crazy to be like, I wonder why the world isn't changing and you're sitting here not changing. Not you, commenter, just like people in general. So I'm trying to break a generational curse. I am literally trying to break the trajectory of like what could be a typical outcome and do something not typical. America is in severe debt. People are absolutely overspending. Quality of life has gone down, absolutely. But it's not going to get better from the higher ups. So I'm not waiting for them to make that decision. I'm going to do it myself with the help of a community that I've built because I'm a good community member. Remember, I didn't do this alone, but it still falls on me to do it myself. Do we know the difference? I didn't get here alone, but it is my responsibility to be a good community member so I don't have to do it alone, to be present and available in people's lives, to be a person who did make enough money so when her sibling calls and they need money, I can send it to them, to be a person who does have a house people can crash at, to make sure that I have enough of my mental sanity to be there when people need me and to put down boundaries. Yeah, a big part of being a community member is making sure you're available when people need you. And also not being the community member who always needs somebody as well. Because we know moochers exist, okay? But we're not being perfect, we're just reducing the harm. Discord says, how did you find the motivation to not be tired even in the face of your fibro? I'm always tired. First, I radically accepted I would always be tired. I am always tired. I'm so tired right now that if I see a cute video of a puppy, I might cry. I am always tired, but I am happy. I am always tired, but I am joyful. I am always tired. There is never a second your girl is not tired. And I'm just not miserable. I'm in pain constantly. I'm just not miserable. And I avoid misery by making sure to maintain my joy. Misery, I was miserable for most of my life, right? But when I went through therapy and philosophical work and really created my values, it made it so this version of the suffering could happen wisely, right? We want to wisely suffer. And so I'm never miserable, but I am always tired. You know, I'm just so tired all the time. But like, okay, I'm allowed to be tired. There's nothing unethical about being tired. But there is something unethical about being a mooch. And there is something unethical about being a bad community member. And there is something unethical about being cruel to the people around me because I'm tired. But there's nothing unethical with being tired. I'm allowed to be tired. Okay? I'm just not allowed to take it out on other people because I am tired. Right? Chet said, I think there's some nuance between our agency as human beings and the vast array of disadvantages people face, of course, and always. So this is why I say, guys, introspection, your relationship with self, extrospection, your relationship with everything outside of yourself, the system, people, community, right? So the levels, my philosophical system is meant to ask, what is your relationship with yourself and everything outside of yourself? Do you actually understand it? Because most people, I'm telling you, do not. Most people do not understand it. They think they get it, but they don't. Okay? So again, okay. We live in a world and I am here. Okay? The world does not revolve around me. I am actually just a part of the world. I'm one of the many X's that exists in the world. Okay? I am not the arbiter of all things reality. Okay? The world doesn't revolve around Brittany. Okay? So when we exist in the world and we know we are here, we have to figure out where we belong in the world, what place in the world, which bubble in the world do I thrive and do I exist in? So there's the bubble that you create in your home between you and yourself and maybe the people in your home, let's say. Maybe not, because I'm married to my soulmate, so we're like the same person, but not. You know what I mean? I don't mean that in the woo-woo way if you're new to my channel. I just mean that's different. Let's say you're a single person. Let's go with that. You're a single person. You live in your own apartment. This is your bubble, your relationship to you and everything outside of yourself. But everything outside of it is more strategic, right? I told the story just a couple of hours ago, like an hour ago, right? Like I moved to Croatia because it was the most viable option to work within our values. I'm not married to this country. Okay. If we've already talked about this as a couple. If we have to move to another country, we'll move. We're just here because it's great. My partner's Croatian. It's easier. They accepted us. Remember that it's a relationship between us and the world. That's why being a refugee is so painful, because you are kicked out of your home, right? This is an external thing you can't control. And you have to wait for somebody else to welcome you, to give you a home. You will never know the struggle of an actual person who's a refugee unless you are one. I've never been a refugee. So instead of pretending that I'm a fucking refugee, I maintain a proper amount of struggle that is my own. Stop taking on people's struggle that isn't yours. It's not your burden. So look at your life and actually be real with yourself. What is your struggle? Because mine is not being a refugee. Mine is being an immigrant, at most, a person who goes from one land to another. But I'm not a person who got in a boat and risked my fucking life to finally find land again because my home was being destroyed. Okay? That's not my story. So I think sometimes people really first take on the burdens that aren't theirs. Okay? And then they pretend like it's their story. That's not your story. What is your story? This is my story. And then I go, okay, Brittany, our story is immigration. Great. Now we have to deal with immigration lawyers. Now we have to deal with governments accepting me. Great. What if Croatia rejects me? Okay, I'm in the middle of my visa process right now. Looking good though. What if they reject me? What do we do? Maybe I go back to the United States. I'm away for a few months. Maybe we move all together to a different country. What are we going to do? But I'm not being rejected because I'm fucking being kicked out of my country. I'm being rejected because my paperwork didn't go through, which is difficult, but I'm not about to take on the burden of somebody being fucking genocided and having to move their families to different countries and pretending that's my same burden. We are not all suffering the same. So first, everybody suffers. So check your suffering. Then within that construct of understanding your relationship to suffering, figuring out how to play inside of the bubbles for your life to migrate to a place that makes sense for you, or to live in a place that makes sense for you. Even if you are not, even let's say you're in America and you're in one state and the state isn't fulfilling for you, move, leave. We all want to be feminist heroes until, God forbid, we have to move. Everybody wants to talk about taking down the patriarchy, but God forbid you got to move. Everybody wants to talk about tackling racism and misogyny, but God forbid you have to move. For me, I take it very seriously that we are trying to change a system. If it means dying, let's go. If it means moving, let's go. Whatever it means, you got to do it. Okay? But it means doing something. You have to do something. And this illusion of we're not going to have to do anything is crazy to me. I'm not about to not do anything. So, okay, I think sometimes people who want the world to change without ever changing themselves are participating in it. And that's crazy for me to hear. That's just like crazy for me to hear that you believe in harm reduction. You're not going to do anything about it. You know, I was at the store yesterday and we were buying food for Indiana, my cat. And it had pictures of a lamb on the bag. And I was like, oh my God, we're so crazy. We kill animals to feed our animals. And my partner's like, no, that's just like, yeah, that's normal. And I was like, no, bro, I just killed an animal to feed my animal. He's like, yeah. And I was like, I'm plant-based. I'm newly plant-based. So I'm like, so I can feed my pet. I'm going to kill this cute ass animal, which by the way, Indiana is a meat eater. I'm not going to take that away from her. Right. But like, that's, you know, every day I'm just like, why am I killing this animal to eat? Do I have to? Like, you know, when Palestinians were killing sea turtles to eat, I was like, got to do what you got to do. Got to do what you got to do. But in any other circumstance, we wouldn't be doing that. That's kind of the point. There's a difference between doing things because you're in survival and doing things because you have privilege. And I have too much privilege to not do something different. But I would never look at somebody who doesn't have that privilege and think, do something different. They can't. They can't do something different. But a lot of people in situations are in enough privilege and still are convinced they can't do anything. And that's why you got to be introspective enough to know what your privilege is, so you know what's actually a limit for yourself. And that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm trying to get you to understand. A lot of the people who tell me they're struggling in life are denying their privilege. Figure out what your privilege is first, and then figure out what's actually hard. Because if you live in America, you are globally privileged. If you live in America, you are 100% default privileged. Now, within the construct of America, you might be the least privileged, but you are still American. Like right now, that passport is a huge privilege. That passport is the difference between you being accepted into another country and you not getting citizenship. You best believe the fact that I have an American passport is contributing to how easy my process has been coming to Croatia. I do not take it for granted at all that I have seen people in the immigration office get denied. And I think to myself, if they were American, they wouldn't have been denied. Very possibly. I saw it the other day. I saw a person get denied their visa. And I just sat there and I thought, I wonder if it's because of where they're from. I don't know that, but I wondered it. And I thought to myself, like, I'm so grateful that like I happened to be born in a country that gave me a little blue passport that automatically gives me a pass in a lot of places, right? And that's all I'm asking you to do. I'm asking you to look at your life and properly examine in which way you are privileged and act on that privilege in a way that doesn't harm other people. And then in every way you do not have that privilege, it's okay. Be kind to yourself and understand that, yeah, that's a privilege you do not have. And that's so scary and that's so hard. But first and foremost, we have to look at our privilege because we certainly all have it to some extent. And then that's how you help your community, right? That's how you know the difference between the people that are taking advantage of someone and the people who aren't. Is you have to be able to acknowledge that how do you know if you're taking advantage of somebody if you don't know your privilege, if you don't know where you stand? You know, everyone struggles, everyone's going to need help, but not everybody needs help all the time. And it certainly isn't a privilege to get help all the time. It certainly can be a sign of being the least privileged that you need help all the time. So I just want you to know that I am never saying it is your fault for your suffering, but it is within our control and it is part of our responsibility to properly identify the why of our suffering so we can mitigate that suffering to the best of our ability, because you have more power in your life than you think. But you don't have all the power in your life because we live in a community and that community isn't perfect. Okay. Chat says, love to see intersectionality at play. Context is king. Absolutely. And I think that's the thing too, is like, I do think a lot of people think they're intersectional. Well, they think intersectionality, but they don't implement it into their life in the same sense because it's really hard. It's really hard when you're suffering. I've been there myself where people have called me privileged and I'm like, I can't believe you're calling me privileged right now when I'm like sick and dying. But the truth is like, even sick and dying, I am privileged. How crazy is that? Even disabled, I am privileged. I am one of those privileged disabled people that can work through her pain. The fact that I can pull 10 hours a day doing my job, even though I can cry from how exhausted I am every day, is still a privilege. It still is one. If you have fibro, you'll know, but I feel like my bones are shattering sometimes. Like I tell my partner, like sometimes I'll scream and my partner's like, are you okay? And I'm like, it's just the fibro. But the fact that I can scream, experience the pain for just a second and be like, oh my God, and then still make it through my day is a form of privilege. Because it isn't so bad that I literally have to stop. It's just bad enough that I'm in pain and I make it through. And like, that is so weird for me to like, it's hard for me to process how much pain I'm in sometimes. And then I also process that like, at least I can still do these things. At least I can still find joy in my life, right? Chet says, how do you know it's not a serious emergency? Well, because I keep going to the doctor. I've been to the doctor a lot and they're like, it's fibro. And I was like, fuck, fibro does this? And they're like, it's fibro, dude. I was like, fuck. Because I did think it was an emergency. So we went to the doctor. I've been x-rayed. I've been ultrasounded. I've been blood tested. I've been everything here in Croatia. And they're like, hey, it's fibro. And I'm like, fuck, that's crazy. I didn't know fibro was this bad, to be honest. Like it's okay, noted. So yeah, I am going to the doctors and they are reassuring me that it's fibro. So, you know, but good question. Cause like, yeah, how do you know? You know? Discourse yes said yes, and I feel an easy way to combat elderly loneliness is producing as many children as possible, so some of them stick with oneself and care for. Are you saying that's the thought? Or are you saying that is a good solution? Wait, you know what? Never mind. Wait, I'm jumping into a conversation on Discord. I always do this. I always jump in halfway. You said, I feel like our society is not made in a way where elders can rely to people that are not their children or their parent. It's a thought. It's a thought because I don't think this is what you're saying, but maybe it is. I definitely don't want people to have kids in order to have a community to take care of them. Because I think that's fucked up. The reason I'm willing to take care of the elders in my community is because they don't expect it of me. But if I thought they expected it of me, I would abandon them. I would abandon them. I would. I'd be like, sucks for you, bitch. Figure it out. Entitlement pisses me off. It pisses me off. Because how fucked up are you to bring me into a universe where I got to pay tax just so I can take care of you? I'm not a slave. No. Fuck you, bro. I'll kill myself so you don't have anyone to take care of you. PDA triggered, bro. PDA triggered. Because the why you would have brought me into the universe because you wanted me here. Because you loved me. So I will just say, like, I will out of spite abandon the elderly. No problem. You know, but I will also advocate for a system to take care of them because it ain't about to be me. Okay? But of course, I'm more than happy to take care of people in my community, you know, if they're not entitled. But I don't think it's an entitlement to want the system to take care of us because we work for the system. The system works for us. It's a symbiotic relationship. The reason the system has to house you is because we make the system possible. Okay? In a real way. They should be housing us because we labor for the system. Okay? That's why the system has to take care of the elderly because God knows we put into it. Okay, but yeah, having a child so they can take care of you, I think is probably the wrong intention there. Okay, guys, let's get back to this video that I've been ranting about for a half an hour, but we're 2 minutes into. Okay.
Whoa, holy fucking shit. Not to mention,
he said, I hope when she's 35 and she watches this video, she might have a different opinion. I hope she doesn't. I hope she maintains that opinion as a 36-year-old woman. I think she's right. I think she has the right idea more than he does.
I think somebody said this once. Wait till I get my money right, then you can't tell me nothing right. So, also, there's that.
So if I make more money, I'm allowed to be a child. So if I make enough money, you can't tell me how to show up in the world and be an adult. Sounds like every white man who dreams of being a billionaire I've ever heard. Sounds like every fucking billionaire mindset from a white man I have ever heard in my life. You can't tell me what to do. I make money. I can be a kid if I want. I can fuck 12-year-olds if I want. That's what I'm hearing.
Factor.
Do you also remember when you were younger, like in middle school, it was cooler to hang with the older kids?
Oh, 1,000%. 1,000%.
Predatory much? You remember being a middle schooler and wanting to hang out with the high schoolers? Yeah, but don't you think those high schoolers are the problem? The kids aren't the problem. The problem is you as the older person wanting to hang out with the younger people. That's the problem. I'm not saying little kids can hang out with older kids, but like at some point.
But what I'm getting at though is, I understand. Like I'm 35. I dress the way I want. I still go skateboarding, right?
Great. I love that. I love watching older people skateboard. I love that, by the way. I think you should skate as long as your knees keep up.
I don't have this notion of oh, wait till you get older, things start breaking down. And why? Why do I have to act a certain way that you perceive to be an adult?
Reminder that this video she created was because she was sick of seeing old people partying with younger kids. She's calling out old people who are acting less capable than 19-year-old boys she knows. Just remember the context of the video and what he's hearing instead.
Who says so? Did anybody tell you your nails were an abomination, or is that just my opinion?
See how he went for her nails that are fabulous? What do her nails have to do with anything?
From downtown.
Time growing up, and I think that's why the millennial stare conversation bothered them so much, because they don't like the idea of being classified as like these older, out of touch people, even though everybody gets a chance. You know, everybody gets a turn. One day Gen Z is gonna be old. They love to remind Gen Z, oh, you're gonna be old one day too. It's like, relax, Savannah. It's okay. You know, like children are going to be a little ageist. That's the reality of life. they are not okay with that. They don't like that. And on one hand,
I agree with her. I think his feelings are hurt. I think old people don't want to hear they can't come to the party anymore because they're not mature. Like, there's a difference between a bunch of 50-year-olds hanging out with each other and partying and having fun for a weekend and then going back to their real life. And there's a difference between it being your lifestyle. You know what I'm saying? I am grateful every day that my parents gave up their young life to raise us. I didn't want parents who were gone all the time. Guys, I was raised with friends whose parents would ditch them on the weekend to go to the casino. I was raised with friends who never had any family time with their parents because they only saw them before and after school. And then on the weekends when they should have been having family time, the parents were out clubbing. Tell me how that makes sense. Tell me how it makes sense to bring a child into the world, to show up as an adult and then ditch them so you can go casino. Like, once in a while, having fun is okay. Making it a lifestyle, like, what are we doing here? Like, what are we doing here that this is your lifestyle that you haven't grown up? Okay, it's not to say you can't have a vacation or you can't have fun. It's saying, why are you the fun parent who also is, because like, look, you can't, I've never known a fun parent who also didn't neglect their kids. Because more than the mature parents who didn't. I feel like in my anecdotal experience, the fun parents neglected their kids way more than the strict parents, but not the super strict parents. You got to have parents like my dad play video games, watch anime with us, but he didn't like it himself as much as he liked it for us. But that's different than the parents who are like so strict they never engage in their kids' fun time because like it's not for adults. That's boo. Or more so the parents who are like, oh my God, I'm the fun parent. Like on Mean Girls, I'm the fun mom. It's like, yeah, I don't want the fun mom. And I don't want the really strict parent. I need somebody with balance. Can I please have the parent that's willing to keep up with their kids and be interested in their hobbies, but not the parent that like is so immature they can't pay their rent? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know why he's taking it, but I think he takes it this way because we... In the same way that we struggle to know what it means to be a responsible adult, because if you look at the president of the United States, he's immature as fuck. Like, Trump never had to be the adult in the room. Trump is the least adult person I've ever seen in my life, and he's president. You know what I mean? And I think millennials also really rebelled against the boomers because the boomers were so strict with what being an adult was. They said having pink hair was immature, being eccentric was immature, having tattoos was immature. But we know that's not true. Mature and reasonable adults have tattoos, have pink hair, skateboard. But your attitude is where it's at. You can have all of those things and never need to party with 20-year-olds. You can do all of those things and still show up and be mature. You can have all of those things and still not have to ditch your kids on the weekends, right? The problem is that millennials are traumatized by boomers. We're traumatized by our parents because we knew we could pay our rent and still have tattoos. But our parents told us that wasn't going to be possible. But I'll tell you this, if you get a tattoo instead of paying your rent, well, now we have a problem. And that's what our parents were afraid of. They were afraid we were going to choose tattoos over paying our rent. Which in my 20s, when I was very bad with money, I might have chosen to party more than pay my rent. But now I'm not that girl anymore. I am mature. A little bit. I grew up a little bit. Now I pay my rent first and then I have fun. But when I was in my 20s and fucked up and suicidal, I 100% didn't want to grow up. Okay? And I'm just saying, like, there has to be a balance. Where is this girl coming from? What is she talking about? You know, my partner tells me this story all the time about being the guy who was like at parties. And there was always that guy at the party who was like 20 years older than everybody else or 15 years older than everybody else. And everyone kind of knew him as like the loser guy that can't have friends his own age. So he hangs out with us. And like, yeah, that's kind of embarrassing. Do you really want to be the old guy in the group hanging out with us? When I was in my 20s and I used to go to a lot of vanilla normie parties. Okay, bad time in my life, okay? I was assaulted at one of these parties. These parties were full of the worst people ever. It would confuse me to be like, I don't know how old I was at the time, 21, 22, like 21, 22. And at the same parties we were all at, there would be like 16-year-olds hosting the parties because their parents were millionaires. And then we would be there because we either all worked together or people were siblings with somebody or people were like, hey, the house is free. So it was weird that we were there in general, but even weirder that there was like 40-year-olds there. And so we were like, it was a very eye-opening experience for me to realize like, oh, this is not a place we want to stay. People are inviting me. Everyone is going. Everybody I know, I work with, or everybody I know is there. But when you show up, you're like, what is this? Why am I here? Like, why am I at this party that has too many ages here? And it took me a long time to realize, like, oh, these people are losers. And I'm a loser if I stay here. So that was it. Like, but you know what I'm saying? Like, I think you are a loser. And I think I've been enough of a loser to even be at the party for a second. And it took me a while to realize, like, just because people you know are there does not mean you have to be there. And again, I knew these people through work. That's how I met people, right? Because I always met people through work. But just imagine being the 35-year-old there. I was the 21-year-old there and I felt stupid. Now imagine you're 35. Do you know what I'm saying? So, okay.
I also get it because it's like our idea of 30s is changing. You know, 30s is the new 20. I get that. But also, y'all kind of do gotta grow up at some point a little bit somehow. That's all.
Says who?
Exactly. You do have to grow up at some point. And listen to his retort.
I get that. But also, y'all kind of do gotta grow up at some point a little bit somehow. That's all.
Says who? You?
What a child. Who says who? Why gotta grow up? Listen to him. She's literally like, you have to grow up. And he's like, he literally threw a tantrum, bro. That's what I'm saying. Isn't that embarrassing? Isn't that embarrassing that a person 15 years younger than you or 10 years younger than you is like, hey, are you going to grow up? He's like, what? How is it insulting for an adult to be told, hey, we have to grow up? Isn't that fucking crazy that a kid has to tell you, like, are you going to grow up? How embarrassing, bro.
The woman with the fucking candy.
Chad said, what's this guy's typical content? Misogynistic-y content. I hate this guy's content. I hate it. He's a misogynist. He's a these hoes over here kind of guy. He's like OnlyFans is ruining America kind of guy. He's like a big kid. I hate his content.
Corn nails? No offense. I don't really care. I get it.
Oh, do you?
Who? You? The woman with the fucking candy corn nails?
So she says, listen to her TikTok. Like, am I the only one? Wait, hold on. I can't read it because it's cut off. Am I the only one that notices this same age group get mad at me because I said I don't want to party with 35 and 45-year-olds? That was the post. Her post literally says in the caption, I don't want to party with. And he's all like, what the fuck? Why don't you want to party with me, bro? She's a kid. She's literally so much younger than you. Now, listen, I've heard from older people, and I almost fell for it too. When older people would tell me, like, you know, the best thing about hanging out with younger people is they have more progressive values, and older people my age don't. And I literally fell for that for like a hot second. I was like, yeah, it must be hard to find people in their 50s and 60s who are progressive. Not true. Man just wanted to fuck kids, bro. Not true. Man just wanted to fuck 25-year-old pussy, bro. Not true, bro. Sounds good, though, man. It almost got me for a second. I was like, and then you realize that is not true. Yes, older people have a problem deconstructing, but there are progressive older people out there, bro. Find somebody near your age. Date somebody who's 35 or 40. But no, you got to go for 22-year-olds? Bro, that's what I'm saying. It almost sounds reasonable. And I'm not saying people can't have friendships that have age gaps. I have friends that are older and younger, but the relationship I have with them is specific. If I have, okay, my siblings call me. My siblings are like, hey, my siblings are younger. They're like, hey, this is what I'm doing with my weekend. I don't sit there and go, can I come? I go, cool, have fun, bro. I remember doing that in my 20s too. Do you get what I'm saying? When my siblings are out there in their 20s, experiencing their 20s, I don't then ask, can I come? I go, cool, have fun, bro. Do you know what I'm saying? I know my place. If my sibling was like, hey, I really want you to come with me, I'm like, oh, isn't it just you and your friends though? They're like, yeah, but it will be fun. I'm like, I'm going to be real with you. I don't want to hang out with a bunch of 22-year-olds. I do not want to be in a room with a bunch of like 24-year-old people hanging out doing 24-year-old things. I already was 24. I already did those things. I'm doing other things now. And that's what I'm saying. I know my place. And I'm saying, do you know yours? Okay, back to the loser guy.
No offense. I don't really care. I get it. But would you rather this? I'm going to play the other end. Would you rather everybody in their 30s and 40s just be super bland and, oh, yes, of course. Mm-hmm. Yes, Paul.
See, he's reacting to his trauma as a millennial, which I deconstructed a long time ago. I'm over that. Because every time I have this conversation with people, that trauma always gets brought up. That is not what being an adult is. That's not her point. She's not asking you to be prim and proper, or not in that not in that way. That is his boomer trauma. Please listen to me when I say this. Her caption is everything he should have been focusing on. I don't want to party with old people. Can you not separate it, dude?
I'll see you tomorrow, indeed. Would you prefer that? Would you prefer the world to be even more bland? Is that what you're honestly suggesting?
No, that's not even close to what she's suggesting. That isn't even for a second what she said. See how old and stupid he is? That isn't even what she said for a second.
I think that's why this has happened. Like, a lot of us grew up with parents who were just accepted life as is. This is defeat. Tuck my shirt in, put the tie on, and fucking go to the place. A lot of us are saying no, and that's why you see it, right? You see 30 to 40-year-olds wearing vintage t-shirts and graphic tees and fucking hats and that. And then you see guys 40 to 50 starting to get their arms sleeved up, right? They're starting to get tattoos everywhere. They're getting the fuckboy haircuts with the shaved sides. You've seen them. I know.
Okay, first of all, the other day I saw one of those fuckboy haircuts. I was like, can I pull this off? And I was like, pause, Brittany. But also, you don't need to have those haircuts. You can have anything else. Like, you can have tattoos and you can wear your little, you can dress. Again, we're elevating the aesthetic. I think people don't know how to elevate the aesthetic though. You don't have to dress like somebody in their 20s to dress eccentric. Do you know what I'm saying?
You have. I know you have. Don't bullshit me. But there's a reason for that.
Yeah, but isn't it such a red flag when we see 50-year-old guys with fuckboy haircuts? Because I think so. When I see guys, I'm like, are you going to dress your age or no? Do you think you're still 19? Like, okay. Okay, you know how gay people dress? We're so fashionable. You know how gay people dress? Like, you know, you can dress like Prince and be an adult. But if you're dressing like a fuckboy in your 40s, do you know what I'm saying? If you're literally dressing like a fuckboy in your 40s, ugh. But if you're dressing like Prince in your 40s, hey, that makes sense. If you're Elton John, okay. If you're dressing like, not that Prince was gay, but you know what I mean? If you're dressing, if you're elevating, if you're actually showing up, that's different than literally saying, this is what kids are into. I should dress like this. You know, I don't understand how you don't know the difference.
Younger people want to be older. Older people want to be younger. It's a small world after all. It's not rocket science. And yeah, some people are just immature. And some people, you know, if I meet a 25-year-old and they're like...
This chatter, look at this chatter in her thing. It says, y'all are too busy acting like boomers. Somebody got to loosen the vibe. And then the reply from Jada, who's the girl who made the TikTok, said, who's going to be the grown-ups? That's what I'm saying, bro. Who's going to be the grown-up if all of us age into fucking teenagers with money? Adulthood is already high school with money. Why do you think we have Trump? It already is high school with money. Can somebody fucking be the adult in the room, please? And who's going to do it if it's not us? That's all she's saying. She's like, hey, if you're not going to be the adult in the room, who the fuck is? Because you know what I mean? That's all I'm saying. Who's going to be the adult in the room, bro? Who's going to be it? That's why I say I'm trying to get there. I'm really trying to be the 40-year-old adult in the room. Okay? Because yeah, the kids are watching us. Okay? And again, adults can party like adults. But we don't got to party like we're 20. You've never been to an adult party, bros? You can party like an adult. But you can't be partying like you're 20 when you're 50.
Fucking no zest for life. I'm sitting there going, oh, what a poor guy, dude. I hope he snaps out of it, you know? That's the last thing I want to be, at least. I mean, Nestor, let me ask you a question. You're 28. I'm 35. Would you rather me be what this lady's suggesting and work?
Well, you couldn't be. You're not smart enough to even comprehend the TikTok. You're literally so stupid. You can't even comprehend what she's saying. So I would prefer for you, yes, to be mature enough to handle the TikTok. But like, that's what I'm saying. Like, what?
With me as a fucking grow up adult?
I don't think I would last long.
That's why we work together.
Yeah.
Right. So
but like people like this, they kind of shame people for keeping, you know, like staying youthful.
Yeah, keeping the fucking your dinosaur. You don't want to lose your dinosaur. And also, hey, you know, maybe that's how she wants to be. I hope she stands on business when she's my age.
What was that? Wendy Williams' voice. What was that? What was that? I don't like the way he mocks her.
Mind you, 30 to 35-year-old bills are paid and can act however they want. There you go, from downtown. We like going out, interacting, and having fun. And I just turned 30. I'm grown where it needs to be, responsible, financially stable. Yeah, all my shit's taken care of.
Yeah, all of our shit's taken care of too, except there's another part of the shit that we're not taking care of, which is being the elder in the community. Pause. Listen. I pay my bills. I'm not ready to be the elder in the community, but I promise you I'm in training. Because by the time I'm 40, I want to be that person. Okay? That's what we're saying. We're saying, how are we not getting to the next part of being? Because I will tell you this, my parents are grown. If you need something, you call the adults in the room. And right now, I'm not that person all the way. I'm somewhat of that person. Okay? Like, I'm halfway. Like, my siblings can definitely help me or call me for help. But I call my parents for help. What's going to happen when they die? When my parents die, who are we calling for help? When my in-laws die, who are we calling for help? So I better know what the fuck I'm doing. Because right now, I'm properly, okay, I'm called for the appropriate things I can handle. And when it's outside of my wheelhouse, I call the adults. Okay? And that's what it is. And yes, Chad, his casual racism is apparent. Okay? The casual racism is apparent. You know? So we have to be the adults in the group. Okay? Because, you know, it's part of being responsible. It's a part of being responsible. Sometimes I do think like Trump never had to be that person, and that's why he's such a child. I guarantee you Trump was never the person someone called, because Trump always hired somebody else to do the work. I don't think he actually knows anything. I think Trump is literally brain dead. I mean, I think he's been since day one because he grew up in the bubble he grew up in. That's why I do not envy rich people, because if you never had to do it yourself, you don't actually know. You just pay people to do it for you. And that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't want to do that. Yeah, Chad said, don't intrude spaces curated for younglings. Create a space for your demographic. Exactly. Why are we creating now? Obviously, things like Comic-Con, an all-age experience. There are events, guys, for all age experiences. But if we're talking about what this girl is literally talking about, she's saying, hey, are you going to be the adult in the room? Because we need it. You know? I'm going to ban you, but I'm going to read your comment out just to show how stupid you are. You said you're a pretty narcissistic person because I bet you wouldn't say the same thing about Joe Biden before he ever went into office. He was twice as bad as Trump. First, I'm going to ban you and let you know I never voted for that man. Now, once that I vote for Joe Biden, I've always thought he was a fucking loser, and you're a fucking loser for being stupid enough not to understand context. Okay? So you can go kick rocks because I never voted for that white man. I've never supported that white man. Okay? I've never, ever had Joe Biden's back. Except for 2.5 seconds when him and Barack Obama ran through the White House with a gay flag. Okay? Fuck off. Okay? And I've also never voted for Trump, so he could fuck off too. Okay.
Yeah, I'm always working, but I like to have a good time, right? Life's not over unless you want it to be. We aren't weird. It's a weird age. Yeah, 35 is odd, dude. You're like, who am I? What am I?
Exactly. Chat says you can be youthful without being immature. Look, I think it takes a level of immaturity. I think you should always have the proper amount of immaturity within you to enjoy life in a sense. Like in the right context, in the right circumstance. At home, when I don't have to be responsible, I'm allowed to engage with immaturity in a spot that's reasonable, right? But I think, you know, in this context of what she's talking about, we need you to be mature enough to know you shouldn't be at the party. Like I said with my friends who were in the scene with me, when they would age out of the 18 through 35 party, they didn't complain. They didn't throw a fit. They said, yeah, this space is for people 18 to 35. I'm going to now graduate to the all ages party, 18 to whatever, 100. It's like, as a community, you have to gracefully age out of participating in certain things. That doesn't mean You can't be 85 and cosplaying. It doesn't mean you can't be 85 and enjoy anime. We're talking about in relation to others, in relation to spaces where young people feel uncomfortable with old people there. Because old people, often more than not, who feel comfortable engaging with young people in adult situations tend to be predatory or immature enough not to understand boundaries. It's like this whole thing with age gap relationships, with peace and love. There's just something to be said about a much older person willing to date a much younger person. Because, you know, like, at least for me, I've never met, depending on the dynamic, of course, because it's not black and white, in which the older person wasn't extremely stunted in order to date somebody that young. And most of the time, we just covered this in BoJack Horseman, the younger people outgrow them. This literally just happened in BoJack, where Peanut Butter didn't understand why he would date these amazing, fun women, and then they would all end in horrible fights. And Diane tried to explain to Peanut Butter, like, they outgrow you. You date them young, and 10 years goes by, they outgrow you, and you wonder what happened. You took young, energetic, curious, lovely girls, dated them, and once they actually realized you were never going to grow up, they dump you. And that's exactly what happened to me when I dated an age gap. It's exactly what happens to so many girls I know. So many girls I know get into relationships with older men because they're going through it. Then they go to therapy, then they get a little bit better, and then they realize, like, oh, why are you dating me? What part of me being where I was in life was interesting or attractive to you? And that's the question for the older person. You know what I'm saying? And I'm saying the older person needs therapy. They're probably stunted. Okay. And I'm not saying every time in every circumstance, always. There are some cultures, some bubbles where you're lucky enough to have enough values in common that an age gap relationship could work, like a 25 and 35. But generally speaking, you are not going to be that exception. Okay. You're just generally speaking. So if you're in that circumstance, you got to be humble enough to wonder, am I the exception or am I actually the rule? And listen to me, as a Brittany, I'm going to tell you this right now. I'm almost always the rule. I am almost always the rule. I learned very young, I guess I learned very old, that I was not the exception. And that's all I'm asking you is, like, are you the exception to this rule or not? Because I'm the exception in many ways, right? I am the exception in many ways. But I just, in that particular way, no. You know, again, I always say, like, you know, you can make an age gap relationship work. I'm not opposed to age gap. It's just, how long is the gap and how old is the younger person? How big is the gap and how young is the younger person? And where are they at with their life? That's all. Just consider it. Okay. There are, you know, and some people consider 2 years an age gap. I consider anything over 5 years more of an age gap, unless the person is 18 and that person's like into their 20s. Or if the person is like, because that's the problem, is like, how young is the younger person? That's all that really matters here.
Doing. And then you have that thing, right? That programming, like, grow up, be realistic. It is a thing where it used to be a perceived way you should act, but that's called acting, right? Like, I don't want to have to act. Does that make sense? I don't want to fucking be an actor when I leave my house. I'm just going to be who I am. I am who I am.
I hate this. I've never liked this guy. This guy pisses me off every time he talks. It just gives racist white man, literally racist white man, and stuck in his 1992 fucking Firebird. He's literally so fucking stunted. Doesn't he just reek like a 90s kid who never left the 90s? He just reeks. And I say this as his elder. You reek. I'm older than this man. He reeks like a boy who's still romanticizing 1992, bro.
I'm just saying, like, would you act one way a certain place, another way a certain place? Like, come on now.
It's called masking. Listen to this white man. He's like, oh my God, like, you have to code switch mask. Ew. And I'm like, yes, stupid. It's called, yes. Yeah, sometimes that's how it has to be. Listen to him. I'm fucking dead.
I was honestly confused. I thought it was 33 to 35-year-old women. Oh, okay. Y'all too busy acting like boomers. Somebody got to loosen the vibe. You get a lot of that, like Gen Z are similar to boomers.
Wait, read Jada's reply though, stupid. Who gonna be the grown-ups? Who's gonna be the grown-ups? Read Jada's reply.
I don't really know. I know a lot of Gen Z kids, and they seem to be.
See how he skips it? See how he's so stupid and illiterate he can't even read? I'm sorry, I'm so pissed. Bro, he literally skipped the whole reply. That is her whole point. Who's gonna be the grown-ups?
Just fine. I don't really get it. The age war is on. I actually feel bad for Gen Z because y'all seem so miserable. Like, what an odd thing to care about. We actually just did a video on the main channel about this. Dude's like 26 and life sucks. Like a lot of 20-year-olds, it's just like, it's like this miserable existence. It's kind of crazy. I understand money. I get that. I understand jobs. I totally get it. I've been doing it a long time. But the whole point of having the job was to go have fun. That was like the whole point. But now you got, however old she is, being like, grow up. It's like, what? Like, we don't want to. Like, we want the fun to keep going.
Oh, so you don't want to grow up. So you want to stay a kid. And he sees nothing wrong with that. Guys, I love that I'm an adult. No one can tell me what to do. I go out, I do what I want, I make my money. That still doesn't mean I want to stay a kid. I want to be an adult, so I don't stay a kid. Because staying a kid means I don't have access to these things. I don't have any freedom. I don't have any rights. I don't have a say over my body and what I do. Being an adult means I get to do things and I get to fight for myself. See the differences here? He thinks being a kid is freedom. I see being a kid as being trapped in my mom and dad's house. I want the freedom to go about my business. Right?
Unfortunately, we're going to have to work. That's kind of like, good luck getting around that. I mean, you can be homeless, I guess. There are ways around it, but it's interesting to me how so many Gen Z love to push their issues or biases onto millennials. When I was a teen, early 20s, I never thought about people older than me the way Gen Z does.
Well, because you're in their spaces. That's the point of her post. The point of her post is you are forcing her to think about you because you're in her space. Isn't this a beautiful example of bubbles? Yeah, I'm glad you never had to worry about older people. They probably weren't in your space. She's saying, why are you at my parties? Why are you making me deal with you?
Wait, I was out popping my shit with older people. I truly find it fascinating how obsessed
Oh, now they're saying I was out popping my shit with older people. Ugh, bro. Chad said he was a full-time career to his dad who had dementia, so maybe he had to grow up quickly. Who, this guy? You're saying his dad had dementia and he had to take care of him? So say that. Say I was in a unique situation in which I didn't get to be young, so I'm reliving it. Which, okay, let's talk about being autistic and stuff. A lot of neurodivergent people do end up living out their lives later in life. I did that too. But at the same time, I'm not hanging out with teenagers. I just need everyone to process the context of this conversation. No one's saying you can't be an adult who makes money and has fun. We're saying you shouldn't be an adult who wants to hang out with kids. We're saying you don't need to relive your childhood with children. She's saying, why are you in my space? When are you going to be the adult? And he can say, hey, I wasn't able to be a kid, so now I want to be one. But I need him to know not everybody wants to stay there. I don't want to stay there. I agree with her. We need people to start being the adults in the room. But we also needed people to... This is why the system has to create a circumstance in which kids don't have to give up their childhood to take care of their sick parents. Because the fact that his dad was sick is devastating. The fact that he was his dad's caregiver is a system failure. Where was the elders in his community? Why did he give up his youth to take care of a sick person? That is a flaw in the system. And I'm sorry that he was traumatized enough, because that's what that was, to have to recreate his childhood now. My heart goes out, in that sense. But that's why there's a flaw in the system that created that circumstance to begin with. And so he, instead of realizing that and calling it what it is, isn't understanding her situation. He's not helping because he is moving with trauma. And I'm saying I'm adult and healed enough to know exactly where she's coming from. She's so valid and she's so right. And I look forward to being the adult in the room because God damn it, somebody has to be. And I guess that's why I take it so seriously, the responsibility, because nobody else seems to be doing that. And I'm kind of sick of it.
With age Gen Zs, I think that's all kids. Like, especially when I was younger, I thought 30 you were dead. I thought it was game over. But the truth is, it's a lie. It is what you want it to be. Yeah, you can do whatever the fuck you want, really. You want to grow up, tuck your shirt in, and put on a tie? That's your MO, man. Go get it. You know? That's not me, though. Like, you'd have to pay me an obscene amount of money to wear a tie on a daily basis. I can be bought. A lot of people can be bought. That's the unfortunate truth. But it would have to be a great deal of money for me.
No values, bro. No values.
To go somewhere every day and put a tie on. No offense. I just don't get it. I don't know who came up with the tie. Like, what is that? You know what I mean? It's a fucking leash or something?
I mean, if you want it to be. I mean, if you want it to be.
When Gen Z starts acting like they have met another human and can socially interact, we can talk. Easily offended, no accountability, whine and complain about everything. Okay, I'm done with it. I never find this, and if they do act that way, they're not saying it to my face at least. But shout out to this chick. I hope we can revisit her in 10 years.
This chick, bro, is stuck in 1995. My bro is so stuck.
I wouldn't be surprised if in 10 years her nails are longer, more colorful, and maybe she'll have red hair next time.
Great. None of that has to do with what she's saying. See, he is traumatized. And I'm saying, what a good example of saying that nothing she said had anything to do with the color of your hair.
When we see her, I don't know. I'm getting the fuck out of here. Shout out to everybody about a caddy.
Okay. Isn't that interesting? Now let's read his comment section. I wonder what kind of viewers he has. Millennials are probably the first generation to sympathize with the younger generation, and she wants to throw shade. Are you sympathizing with her? Because it feels like you're not understanding her at all. It sounds like you're not sympathizing with her at all. Isn't that funny? That they perceive themselves as being more empathetic, but then not understanding her at all. Not reading her comments or her retorts, not understanding her issue, right? His comment section says, I remember when Gen Z became famous for eating Tide Pods. Talk about maturity. They were literally like 12. Okay, Gen Z is so afraid of being cringe and awkward to the point of being zero fun to be around. Literally, not the video. If she had said those things, sure, but nothing she said was about that. Chat says, meanwhile, younger Gen Z wants our drip, our music, our memories. She looks 30-something. She looks 30-something too. Okay, girl. High school with money. This is what I'm saying. She said you all are not growing up, and you're proving her so right in these comments. You guys write like you're teenagers. That's what I'm saying. That's so funny. She's literally like what she is saying. They are just absolutely proving her point. Gen Z is just boring. They think having no personality and start staring is having aura. What is this? As a 39-year-old, our sense of humor is unmatched and we are cool as fuck because MTV and punk rock TV or punk rock era. Yo. Actually, we're so cool. We had MTV, bro. What? As a 35-year-old millennial, I think we just learned how to ignore all of the pain and laugh at it. That's it. I mean, maybe. As a 32-year-old, we were the last generation to grow up without smartphones. Most of us were in high school and college when they came out. I mean, sure, I don't know what that means. We millennials grew up on Jim Carrey, Power Rangers, The Simpsons, Beavis and Butthead, and Ren and Stimpy. Of course, we're weird. What did you expect, Gen Z? Okay, speak for yourself. Because everyone knows I didn't grow up on The Simpsons. Beavis and Butthead was stupid, and Ren and Stimpy was dumb. Okay, these are dumb people shows. I said what I said. Jim Carrey, I mean, he's funny, but like, what does that mean? Power Rangers, I guess, classic. But like, what does that mean? She didn't say you can't be weird. She didn't say you can't be weird, bros. Enjoy your fucking Simpsons. She said, are you going to be the adult in the room? Which, by the way, I think The Simpsons is kind of a show about nobody being the adult in the room, isn't it? Aren't those shows all about nobody being the grown-up? Ren and Stimpy is just fart jokes. These people are so in love with the past, bro. This is so silly. Growing up is optional. Growing old is mandatory. Yo! Growing up is optional. Growing old is mandatory. That's what I'm saying. Adults are just, it's high school with money. People are so stupid. That is not, what is that? Are you proud of that? Says, right, it seems like it's an invisible glow around even some older people. I'm so glad someone mentioned that. First time I heard this quote was a comedian, George Carlin. See how George Carlin's stupid? Every person who thinks George Carlin was a genius and didn't grow past it, that's the point. George Carlin is only good when you're young. He's not smart once you get old enough. Once you get old enough, you realize like, oh yeah, that guy was basic, bro. The romanticization of being an immature man is so funny. She called them Peter Pan, literally, though. She looks closer to 40 than 20. Yeah, why are you making fun of how she looks when the guy who literally hosted this said he looks old? 38-year-old millennial here. We survived a lot, and baby girl, there's nothing boring about us. We are not out of touch, and we are very much aware and enjoy life. I'm weird, creative, eccentric, or electric, loving and understanding. I don't mind getting older. That's the goal, to live as long as I can. When did she say that? When did she say that? When did she say that? This is what I'm saying. Man. Eclectic. Thank you, Discord. Thank you, Discord. Eclectic. Thank you. Man, you know my dyslexia. Move those letters around so many times. But you know what I'm saying? Like, what? Listen to this. At least we millennials had a childhood. Their parents threw phones and iPads at them while our parents watched TGIF and Toonami and Nickelodeon with us, right? Sneak with us. This isn't helping your case. Why didn't you grow up then? Like, yeah, my parents did that too with me too, but like we also have to grow up. Like, I don't know that to be true. Look, I don't know why everyone keeps saying Gen Z didn't have a childhood. Maybe I'm just around Gen Zers who are different, but none of my Gen Z siblings were iPad kids. I don't even think anybody owns an iPad in my family. Second of all, just because some of those kids are growing up that way, raised by Gen Xers and millennials, does not mean anything. Like, yeah, like your parents raised you badly, but you think you were raised better as a millennials by boomer parents where you're so afraid of a tie? This man is scared of wearing a tie. Who raised you? Do you know what I'm saying? How are you healthier than Gen Zers when you're in these comments acting like this? Like, what are you talking about? How did you not understand what she was trying to say? She has no humor. It's like Gen Z never learned to have fun and be free-spirited. They're kind of concerned, bro, because the economy and the world is melting around them. So they're kind of looking at us like, okay, listen. So Gen Zers are 30 and younger, right? And they're looking at everyone older and being like, so are you guys going to do something about this? Because like we're trying to like party and hang out and be kids, but like it kind of feels like you guys aren't going to do anything. And millennials are like, we're not going to do anything. Have fun, right? They're like, have fun. And then millennials are like, we don't want to do anything. So you're going to do what the boomers did. You're not going to do anything. And I'm saying we should do something. And I'm saying, yeah, we should do something. Like, shouldn't we do something? Yeah, we need to do something. You can do whatever you want to do, but we should do something. And that's all she's saying. She's like, can someone be the adult in the room? Yeah, for sure. I got you. Give me 4 more years and I'll be the adult in the room. Uh-oh, this chat's gross. Big back energy, fat girl, high caloric. Yeah, this whole chat is just fat phobic and fucking bullshit. Oh, this comment might be interesting. Hold on. I heard something a while back that says millennials are frozen in time. We were hit with Y2K warnings, then watched people perish in 2 planes flew into buildings. We've been through numerous wars, a couple of recessions, and then a pandemic hit. All of that while having the rug pulled under us so we can't afford to live and have no way to save or buy for our own homes and struggle to care for our family we have. That's why we dress and act the way we do. We long for the 90s where things were simple and fun. Yes, we are traumatized and stunted, and she's just pointing that out. So why are you getting mad at her? Because he's traumatized, right? Yeah, we are traumatized 100%, which is why we cannot give up. We have to break the generational curse and keep going. And also the 90s were only simple and fun for some people. Okay, the 90s was only fun and simple for some people. So if you feel like the 90s were simple and fun, you were definitely probably in a pretty good position already, which, yeah, I grew up, like, my parents raised us in a particularly, like, pretty good position. I think I was one of those kids who had it pretty okay in the 90s and 2000s. Definitely, right? I grew up in a nice neighborhood. It was very middle class. It was a safe neighborhood. We had access to things. Our neighborhood did stuff. Like, yeah, I grew up in a community for sure. But not everybody was going through that in the 90s. Not to mention homophobia, racism, and transphobia were crazier, right? In a lot of ways for a lot of people. So like, yeah, the 90s were simple and fun if they were simple and fun. But like, I also remember as a gay kid growing up how hard it was, right? Chet said no social media, no phones, no Google. Yeah, but like that was so much worse for so many people. I think the problem is for a lot of people, they don't understand that the internet is like the best thing that happened for some of us. The internet is the best thing that happened for me. It's hands down one of the greatest things that happened for me. And for my partner, like technology, video games, like was the best thing that happened. For marginalized communities, I think the internet was the best thing that ever happened to us. And we should pay attention to that. Okay? So again, I think people who think the internet ruins society, yeah, I wonder about that. I wonder about the people who think the internet's the reason the world sucks. Because for some of us, we didn't need the internet to know that the world was hard. And look, if your people look at, and I can just put the responsibility on the parents. We are all burdened by how badly our parents raised us, even the ones who tried, right? But that doesn't mean the internet's the issue. The issue is always the parenting. Parents struggle to parent because we're not having kids responsibly. We're just having them because we were horny and got pregnant, or maybe in our heads we planned it, but we know we weren't ready for it. People in the 90s had babies they were not prepared for. P.S. Like, obviously, come on, girls. Boomer parents were fucking as well. They were not prepared for us. No one's ever, like, in the history of humanity, we have not generally been good planners when it comes to making babies. You know, I don't know why we're pretending that all of our parents were like truly prepared to have children. Most parents were not prepared to have kids, and we are the product of that lack of preparedness. That's why newer generations aren't having kids, because we were like, yeah, we're smarter than our parents. I think the fact that we're not having kids is the fact that we're more responsible than them. You know, that's just the truth. And so it is kind of funny, I guess. This idea of like who had it easier, who's better raising kids. I just feel like everyone's on their own journey with their own things, and everyone has a point. But I think her point is very important to pay attention to. Younger people are looking at us and saying like, hey, are you going to be the adult in the room? And he said no. And I think that's a testament to his stagnation much more than hers. And that's it. Okay? Look at this comment. Nobody's convincing me to grow up. Okay, y'all, like, I don't know what that means. Well, also saying like my mortgage is paid. Yeah, growing up halfway is still just halfway. Like, you should keep growing. It's just, isn't that so interesting? Why are you so afraid of taking on more responsibility? Because you probably don't want it. I talked to a friend about this the other day where I said, like, I'm not ready to take on the responsibility of being more popular as a content creator yet. And they said, what do you think will be different? And I said, well, it's the number of people who will rely on me in a sense, because we do that. It also will be like the amount of responsibility of people in my actual life relying on me. When I'm ready, I'll be ready. But it's going to be like thinking about what I say a little bit more, being considerate, being more patient, but also like being available it's a lot to be available. And I understand why people hesitate to take down that responsibility, but I also believe in community effort. If we keep preaching every day that we want a better world, but we're not going to take on the responsibility of creating it, then I don't get it. I don't get it. I can't sit here and advocate for a better world and not take on the responsibility of being better. I don't get how you sit here every day and complain how the world sucks and you do nothing to change. And I just don't want to be one of those people that complain every day. I want to be one of those people that do something about it, because I think that is what we should be doing. I just think it takes time and patience, and it can't happen overnight because we have to deal with our own trauma. And this guy's traumatized, and I'll give him that. He sounds like someone in chat said he took care of his dad with dementia. That's really tough. And I hope one day he's able to recognize that he's traumatized and go to therapy, and also recognize what that girl was saying. I don't think he could hear her. Jada, I think is her name. I don't think he could hear her because it triggered him. And I would love to see a world where he recognized that he was activated. I would love to see a world. He said, I'd like to see her opinion in 5 years from now. I'd like to see yours in 5 years from now. I would like to see if your opinion has changed about yourself because you handled this reaction badly. You were wrong with what she was asking of you. You were wrong in hearing her. You know, you were wrong. And I wonder if he'll know that one day.